Welcome to my channel Recap Stories. Today, we will talk about a story that starts with a boy named Honey. Honey is the son of a wealthy father. Like many rich kids, when Honey gets an excessive amount of money, he spends his nights in clubs, drives girls around in his expensive sports car, and says whatever comes to his mind. One day, when he was driving his Ferrari at a very high speed, an officer stopped him and told him that he was speeding. Without thinking, Honey threw money at the officer's face and tried to leave. However, the officer refused to take the bribe and stood his ground. Furious, Honey ran his car over the officer, as he didn't value anyone's life. Moments later, he is sent to jail, even if it's just for a short while. His father, Henry, is called, who is one of the wealthiest men in Russia. Thanks to his connections, Henry gets him released, but Henry is ready to apologize to the officer and cover all his expenses. Henry warns his son, but Honey never takes him seriously. Even when Henry says he will stop giving him money, Honey is confident it will never happen. After his wife's passing, Henry always loses to his only son, Honey. This attitude of Honey starts bothering Henry. He tells his girlfriend Sarah that they must do something before Honey ruins everything. Sarah informs Henry about a person with a different approach to handling such cases. Henry and Sarah go to meet this person, Albert. When they arrive, they find Albert trying to hang himself. Shocked, they think about calling the police, but Albert says it was just a game. He tells them that his method is different, and showing such scenes is his habit. A few days later, when Honey comes out of the club, he notices someone driving his Ferrari away. He chases after them, but ends up colliding with a car and loses consciousness. When he regains consciousness, he finds himself in a rural area. His clothes have changed, and he looks like a laborer. A man named Jordan comes to him and says, "Hurry up, we need to prepare the horses." Honey is confused and, in his anger, pushes Jordan, but soon he is brought before the village owner, Dmitri, who is very strict. Dmitri orders him that if he doesn't work next time, he will be whipped 100 times. The next day, when Honey refuses to work, he gets whipped. He tries to escape, seeking help from people, but everyone ignores him. Then, Honey realizes that he has traveled through time and has landed in a Russian village from the year 1830. This was something beyond his comprehension. Everyone thinks he has gone mad. Meanwhile, Dmitri announces that Honey will be sentenced to death for trying to escape the village, and preparations are made to hang him. At that moment, Dmitri's daughter, Adya, arrives and says she is tired of seeing someone die in such a way every day. Since today is her birthday, she requests her father to spare him, at least for today. Dmitri agrees and orders Honey to be sent to the stable. Once there, Honey slowly starts to realize that he hasn't been robbed but has traveled through time. During this time, when he looks up, he sees an eagle, but in reality, it is a drone, being controlled from a location far away in the village by Albert Acton. In fact, everything happening here is part of Albert's plan, with the expenses being covered by Henry, who is trying to reform his son. They had set up a complete setup in the forest, but when Henry saw the flogging of his son, he felt terrible. He told Albert to stop it, but Albert reassured him that it was all for Honey's own good. Meanwhile, a few characters enter, who have been instructed not to wear anything modern, to avoid ruining the plan. At night, we see Honey going back to the stable to sleep, contemplating whether he would remain this state forever or ever escape from this situation. The next morning, he has to get up early, so he immediately falls asleep. After waking up in the morning, he goes into the woods to relieve himself and then prepares the horses, which makes him feel very scared. Always used to feeling the power of his Ferrari, Honey now feels the true power of a horse. Eventually, he manages to prepare the horse for the day, and if he had failed, he would have been flogged. As time passes, his friendship with Arthur grows stronger, as Arthur helps him with the tasks there. One day, Honey sees Dmitri's daughter, Adya, crying. When he approaches her, Adya reveals that her father has arranged her marriage to an old man. Albert's belief was that the easiest way to reform a spoiled person is through love, and he wanted to bring Adya closer to Honey. However, Honey is indifferent to her crying. He says, "That's good. After his death, all the property will be yours, then you can get married." Hearing this, the people around them start laughing, as this is Honey's nature. His father still hasn't noticed any change in him. One day, Honey catches Dimitri's chicken and asks Arthur to cook it, so they can eat it together. Arthur obeys and cooks the chicken, but Honey eats it all by himself, even though Arthur had helped him a lot. When the foreman finds out about this, he angrily asks, "Who stole the chicken? Tell me the truth, or all of you will be punished." The foreman suspects Arthur and starts beating him. However, Honey doesn't come forward, even though Arthur has always stood by him and solved his problems. Honey's indifference shows that money has made him emotionless, and he no longer has humanity left in him. After some time, Jabbar tries to reason with Honey by showing him the marks of the flogging, but Honey mocks, "These are too light," as if someone made them with their hands. Actually, these marks were made by a makeup artist. Honey notices a new character, Trisha, who was assigned to take care of the horses. When she falls from a horse upon returning, Honey rushes to help but ends up falling on top of her, raising suspicion among everyone. Meanwhile, Trisha is wearing a scent that Honey notices. When he asks her about it, she is already gone. Now Henry doesn't like any of this, as he fears that if Honey finds out the truth, he could send everyone to jail. Albert finds out that Honey is looking for Trisha to apologize. This surprises him because he never expected Honey to act this way. So Arthur quickly brings Trisha in front of Honey, but she remains indifferent. Honey apologizes to her and wants to talk, but Trisha leaves. That night, there is a festival in the village, and everyone joins in dancing. Honey dances too, and Adya tries to come closer to him, but he ignores her and sits next to Trisha. He tells her, "Why don't the people here talk? In our 21st century, everyone lives very comfortably." Hearing this, Trisha leaves, but Honey feels sad. Suddenly, Arthur comes and tells him that Adya is drowning in the pond. Honey immediately runs and pulls her out, escorting her to her room. Adya signals him to come closer, but Honey goes to Trisha instead, hoping to talk to her. However, Trisha locks the gate, leaving Honey frustrated, and he returns to the stable. Albert sees that Honey is interested in Trisha, so to make the story more interesting, he gives him a role in the story. This doesn't sit well with Foreman, who was involved in the project and was also Trisha's boyfriend. Trisha explains to him that they are being paid for this work, and it is not for real life, but rather to provide a realistic experience. The next day, the story takes a new turn. Foreman goes to the city and gets into a fight with some soldiers, which worries Dimitri because now the city soldiers are coming to arrest him. Dimitri immediately calls for Honey. Foreman says that if Honey accepts his punishment, he will be given good food, clothes, and freedom. After thinking for a while, Honey agrees to the deal for his freedom. Later, the city soldiers arrive and start flogging him, and he endures the pain himself. However, when he goes to Foreman for the papers of his freedom, Foreman hits him and spits on him, saying, "What did you think? That we will release slaves so easily?" Hearing this, Honey becomes furious and decides that today he will not rest until he has beaten Foreman. However, for his mind and situation is handled. Trisha dismisses it, saying she's seen this eagle since childhood and it's there to protect them. On the other hand, Hathia and Foreman are upset because their jobs have been taken away. Trisha has now a lead role, and Foreman's girlfriend is spending time with someone else. They console each other, though they are supposed to play the role of siblings in this project. Honey and Trisha are undergoing changes, something feels off to them. When they go inside, they find Hathia and Foreman close to each other, which breaks Trisha's heart. Honey doesn't notice this, and to cheer her up, he thinks of giving her a surprise. They have a meal together, and he tells her the story of his life. Later, they go for a walk, where Honey tells Trisha, "If you were in my world, I would have married you by now." He explains that he had the chance to gain freedom, but he was deceived. He then says that he didn't say anything to Foreman that day because he saw himself in Foreman, someone who doesn't care about anyone's emotions. Trisha, after seeing this change in Honey, starts to feel attracted to him and finally kisses him. The next scene shifts to the real world, where Hathia gives an interview summarizing that Russia's richest man is keeping his son imprisoned. This news spreads quickly, and the police announce immediate action. Handy says, "We must stop this immediately." Prelbit says, "It will take time for the police to reach here, but until then, we can take the project one step further." Honey and Trisha are sitting outside the village, talking. Trisha tells Honey that if they ever part ways, he should not think that it was all a lie. She truly loves him. She knows that today is the last day of the project, but her feelings are real. At this moment, Arthur informs them that the Mongols have attacked the village and everyone must leave. Trisha follows Arthur, but Honey, afraid, runs away from the village. Then, he remembers Trisha and returns. He sees that the Mongols have captured some girls from the village and are killing people brutally. During this, he sees that they've also caught Trisha. Trisha pleads for help from Honey, her eyes filled with tears, hoping he would come to her rescue. But Honey, frightened, runs away. People sitting in the studio say everything is over now, and there's no hope for Honey, but Albert is confident he will come. Meanwhile, the same eagle, which is actually a drone, starts flying over Honey. Trisha had told Honey that this eagle was her deity, always there to help him. Honey thinks this might be its way of telling him to go save Trisha. So, Honey, like a hero, rides a horse and reaches the Mongols to rescue Trisha. He starts leaving the village, and everyone in the studio is happy because this is what they wanted. Just then, the police arrive, but they are stopped because of the shooting. Actually, Honey and Trisha have already moved far away, so the police don't suspect anything and leave. Meanwhile, we see that Trisha, while running, reaches a road where a petrol station appears. She manages to ask something when suddenly an air project comes and hits her, causing her to faint. When he opens his eyes, he finds himself standing in front of his car, and he is confused, unable to understand what is happening. Was Trisha just a dream? Was everything he saw in the village only an illusion, or was it real? He has no answers to these questions. Later, he tries to go back to his old life, but he is unable to. One day, he goes to 100%, the place he had crushed earlier. Honey apologizes to it and, after giving the gift of his freedom, he returns. One day, he is at a club and spots Foreman and Hathia. He immediately goes up to them and asks about Trisha, but they dismiss him in such a way as if they had never seen him before. Honey feels that everything he saw was just a dream, so he apologizes and leaves. That night, Radia feels sorry for Honey and takes him to another yard, leaving him there. It is here that Honey finally sees Trisha. From a distance, he asks if everything that happened in the village was true. Trisha shakes her head in affirmation and, crying, tells him that she misses him very much. Then, they both go to Honey, who is startled to see Trisha with him. Trisha says that she has told him everything, and Honey finally reaches his father to thank him for revealing the truth of his life and making him a better person. Everyone is very happy because this is what they had hoped for. In the final scene of the story, we see that another rich heir has been brought to the same village, and now Honey is in charge of him, marking the end of the story. I kindly request you to help me reach 10,000 subscribers on my channel as soon as possible. We hope that all of you will enjoy this video and give it a like. Please make sure to subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for your loving comments. See you in the next video.